As you all know, we started this series of webinars about 1.5 years ago. And I would like to thank Richard Velleman especially and Alex Helfer on this occasion. Without their support, these webinars wouldn't be possible. And we've already covered quite a broad range of issues regarding addiction and the family. And as you all know, we are a small charity. So although the webinars are free, we would welcome if people who feel they're able to donate something would do a small contribution to AFINet. And today, I'm very pleased to introduce Tremblay from Canada. I think you're the first Canadian speaker we had so far. Joelle is a psychologist and a full professor in the Department of Psychoeducation of the Université du Québec à Trois-Rivières and scientific director of the Recherche et Intervention sur les substances psychoactives Québec research team. He is interested in the role of a person's entourage on the efficacy of treatment for addiction, including projects that assess the efficacy of couple interventions with gamblers and substance users, which will be the focus of his talk today. But he also focuses on model performance for the organization of services and the assessment of population needs for these services, another really important issue. And he is co-author of My Choices, a program aimed at attaining controlled use of alcohol, cannabis, and other substances that is widely used in the Francophone countries. He also works on developing tests such as screening tools and directs the development and validation of a battery used in addiction services in Quebec, Canada. And today, he will talk about integrative couple treatment for addiction. And I'm very interested to hear what you have to say. And thank you for supporting us and being here. And the floor is yours.
Thank you, guys. So welcome everybody to this session. First of all, I apologize for my English. I'll do my best, but I'll do many mistakes in the use of the English, so all my apologies about that. I'll talk about our model. I say our model, but this is a model that is largely inspired by different models who already exist. We call it integrative couple treatment for addiction. You see a lot of my colleagues on that project. We are interested about couple treatment for addiction since many years. Let me do a rapid journey about this interest. Where did it start? 15 years ago or more, we receive a small grant for gambling, for innovative intervention into gambling, and I'm already a couple therapist. I'm a psychologist, a researcher, but also a couple therapist. So I proposed the first tiny project with some partners about responding to the question, what would be the best intervention, where we offered individual therapy, group treatment, and couple therapy. And through qualitative analysis, we work on the efficacy and interest from the partners about these interventions. We observed that both partners and gamblers were more interested into couple treatment, saying they are gaining many benefits from this intervention. I have a picture here of an angry pregnant woman, because it was very typical of these groups where a woman said something like, I was pregnant, and one day I arrived at home, and suddenly I saw that all the furniture and everything was gone, and then that way I learned that my husband was a gambler and I was pregnant. So we decided through this first project to develop a better couple intervention. We inspired ourselves from the work from McCrady and Epstein about their couple program, which is quite similar to the one from O'Farrell on addiction to substances. And we developed at this moment the integrative couple treatment for pathological gambling. We published into the Canadian Journal of Addiction a description of our model. And we started a randomized, then after that, a randomized controlled trial among gamblers and partners, among couples, with follow-ups at 10 and 20 months, where people were randomized between treatment as usual, which is individual treatment, and couple treatment. We published a qualitative study on that topic, and we are now publishing our quantitative results showing that couple treatment is more efficacious than individual treatment in gambling, which is congruent with many results we have around the world for couple treatments for addiction to substances. But it was the first for specifically for gambling. So we published our qualitative results. If I have time, I'll talk about it. But we go deeper into the experience of people receiving couple treatment. What are their experiences? Very interesting qualitative study. I'm just going through the journey rapidly. We then also conducted study on coping strategies used by partners, again with gamblers. We published our results proposing a different taxonomy of coping strategies used by partners. And we start working on the efficacy of the use of these strategies by partners. We published about that. And we are more recently into the questions of relationship reparation, though. So the forgiveness process among couples. So one of our students conducted her thesis on that topic. We went through a large scoping review of what do we know about forgiveness processes into couple therapy. There's, without surprise, we read nothing about the use of forgiveness process into couple therapy into addiction. There's nothing written about that. So we synthesized the literature on many other difficulties couple have in other topics, like extramarital sexual affair or things like that. And then we applied it to addiction, trying to incorporate into addiction treatment all these models about how can we repair a wounded relationship. And why did we do that? And why do we do that actually? Because in our previous work, we observed strongly how the relationship is seriously affected by addiction, how there's broken things into the relationship that needs a lot of attentions and strategies to try to repair something that was broken through addiction. We conducted a small study, multiple cases analysis with 3 couples, just to try to use our forgiveness processes that we think must be included into the treatment. Interesting results that they are submitted for publication. We still wait for the answer. We received the first answer of approval. We are modifying the paper. And now we are starting a new randomized control trial for treating, in which we implement couple treatment in addiction, but specifically for people who have the comorbidity of gambling and substances. They can have a principal dependence or addiction and another that is minor, but people must have both behaviors. There's a new grant for the next 5 years, in the next 4 years now. We readjust our model. We modify our model based on our different studies, and the collaboration with another research team. And we are starting clinical workshops, recruitment for the project by the next fall. We need 120 couples, so people are distributed between control treatment as usual and couple treatment for addiction, the same protocol. We will have also a very interesting thing, pilot sites in Sweden, Switzerland, in Spain, potentially in Finland. We're still talking about it, and we are open to pilot sites in other countries where we want to answer the question about couple treatment. We have a good couple treatment. Many studies showed in the recent decades that couple treatment in addiction is a good strategy, more efficacious than individual treatment or group treatment. But the questions remain. For example, actually we think we improve our model by adding attachment concepts and intervention with all the forgiveness strategies I was talking about. But is this treatment, does this treatment can be applied easily in different cultures? For example, we know with my colleagues in Spain, they are talking about how families are invasive. They want to participate into the treatment of addiction. They want to be consulted, etc. When I talk to Anders, my colleague in Malmö, Sweden, he says how families are distant. They do not want to be implicated into the treatment the same way. So, and probably Switzerland is quite the same, or in the midway between Spain and Sweden. So we think that cultural differences will necessitate cultural adaptations of the model. And we cannot presume that we would observe the same efficacy in different cultures. So this is one of the main questions we have into this study. We will not go through randomization and things like that into these other countries. We will have only a pilot sites with more qualitative analysis of the process. And at the same time, we'll have this randomized control trial in Quebec. So it was my research journey, but let me talk about what is this treatment and how did we modify it. We think it is an improvement, but I think so. Based on our experience, I think this is a good improvement we did to the protocol, the treatment protocol. So mainly I will talk in the next part about the treatment, and if I have the time, I don't know how much time I will have at the end. I have a few slides or 2 minute slides on efficacy, but the goal is mainly to talk about the treatment. So what are the objectives? The objectives is, of course, the first one is to reduce or stop addiction-related behaviors. Of course, this is the main one. This is probably the biggest difference with any other couple treatment. When couples are consulting, they are consulting because of couple distress. In our context, people are consulting because of addiction behaviors, and we are proposing them to come with their partner, which is totally different. So the initial demand is about addiction. So the first goal of treatment must be addiction. And we propose couple therapy because so many studies show how we have a better impact on the people with addiction. Individual treatment, group treatment are efficacious treatment, but we improve our efficacy with couple implication. We, of course, want to reduce psychological distress and improve well-being of both partners. We want to increase also relationship satisfaction and mutual support, of course, between partners. One of the main changes we did is about how do we define and how do we work about this interaction between partners. We set a new goal. It's not totally different of what we had before, but it's more precise and based mainly on attachment theory into couples, the work of Susan Johnson in Ottawa with her emotionally focused couple therapy, which inspired us a lot. I just recall us that two main couple treatment in general care are recognized as well based on many efficacy studies. The first one is the cognitive behavioral, which is our basis. And the second one is emotional focused couple therapy, which is this second focus we introduce in our treatment. Richard, is the sound still good? Everything is good? The presentation, you see everything? Just
everything is great. The sound is great, and you can see the slides very well.
Okay, thank you, Richard. So we modify the way we approach this relationship question by saying something around the goal would be to unify the couple against negative interaction cycle around addiction behaviors. So one of the main goal we have is to help these couples to identify their negative interaction cycle around addiction. So he, as a couple I see actually, the man arrives, he is totally drunk, whereas at home, but he's so afraid that his partner will divorce. She will be so angry that he says, he denies that he's drunk. He says, no, I didn't drink, but every behavior is showing how intoxicated he is. At the same time, she becomes so angry, she yells at him. So we first work on these interactions. We don't talk about everything the couples would like to talk about, sexuality, about kids' education. We can talk about it if it's related to addiction. But first of all, we talk about the interaction about addiction. And we try to help people to be together against addiction instead of fighting about addiction. This is one of the first goals. I'll situate it into the global treatment just after, but just to talk first for people who already heard or read about our model. This is a modification we include in our model. And the second one is a goal to have a more structured work after all the readings and the thesis work of our student, doctoral student, excellent, brilliant student, Melissa Cote, on forgiveness. We introduced then in our treatment a specific intervention where we try to repair relationship transgressions, or said differently, attachment injuries, which happen around or about, addiction interactions in the couple's life. We don't want to repair all attachment injuries a person had in his life. Perhaps your mom abandoned you. Perhaps your father was very violent with you. We have a lot of empathy. This is not the point. But the goal of the couple treatment is to work on relationship transgression into the couple about addiction, mainly. We always have to talk about many, many things, but we try to be focused on the initial demand for help is about reducing addiction behavior. So we we focused our work on these topics. And mainly, what is it? Attachment injuries. I talk about a couple I recently saw. So during 10 years, the man drank heavily, but his wife was working in the evenings, so he was drinking only when she wasn't there. She was arriving late from her work, and by the time she was arriving, he was totally drunk, but in his bed, and he hid everything. The proofs, the bottles were disappeared. And he was bad in the bed. She arrived. She's asking him, "Oh, hi, hello, how are you?" And he was saying something about, "Oh, I'm bad and I'm sick." No, he was drunk, but he said he was. But she was and she is a very kind person, and she believed him during 10 years. When he finally revealed his alcoholism, she was shocked. And it was a real attachment injury for her. You lied to me during 10 years. Who am I for you? So we have to work on it. We have to work on it. So how do we proceed? In fact, so we have sessions of about an hour and a half, in which we have the first part work on the addiction. Every classical work we do on addiction. But partners, so this is mainly our therapist work, mainly with cognitive behavioral, very well-known strategies. But the partner is integrated into the process. She or he can say things, include new informations, sustain the work. And what we observe, like a partner said to me a few weeks ago, this woman who where the husband lied during 10 years, she said, "Oh my God, after 50 minutes listening to my partner, I discover a whole new world. I didn't know how difficult it was for him to do not drink. I didn't understand what was happening into his head and emotions." So the partners are learning so much things through this process of being present. They don't talk a lot, but sometimes they talk. And we are attentive to their reactions. Sometimes they are angry. Why did you listen to him? He was very bad with me and all these things. But this is a specific, these are specific moments to educate, to inform, to be sensitive to emotional reaction to the partner. At the opposite, in our qualitative study, we saw how partners said, "Okay, he went into treatment, individual treatment. Fine, I'm happy about that." But never he talked to me about what happened. At the opposite, partners into the couple treatment said roughly, "I thought he was doing it, his addiction, purposefully to wound me, against me. And now I've discovered that no, he's sick, it is difficult for him, and even if he's drinking, he loves me." So these are very different experiences. And typically we have a second phase into each session where we work on relationship aspects. So typically I have this graphic. What is it? This is the time span or devoted to couple aspects of treatment, where so you have the session here 1 to 12. Here you have the number of therapists where we receive these informations and the time they reported to use for couples. So typically at the beginning of the session, at the first sessions, they spend 30 minutes. So they spend probably 1 hour on addiction and 30 minutes on couples aspects. And you see, oh, here, sorry, these are not the good numbers. Yeah, 50 to 60 minutes. And here it is 60 plus minutes. Sorry, I made a mistake. So But you see, the point is, you see how over the session, the therapists spend more and more time with the couples or interaction aspects, probably because addiction is reducing. In the real life, we see how therapists spend they can spend more than 12 sessions, they spend 20, 40 sessions. In a study, when we must limit the number of sessions, but in fact, they work on many aspects. So this is our treatment. So we have intervention directed to the person with addiction. Here you have the session. There's things we do at the beginning. There's things we do in the core part of the treatment. And there's things that are done mostly toward the end. There are things directed at the person with addiction, like I said, things directed at the partners, and things concerning the couple. I'll go through the main things. I will not go into the tiny details of each one, but at the beginning we work on client expectations. We talk about our objectives. We place some rules, and expectation are transmitted to patients. So we talk about the violence topic, the separation menace, the necessity to be present to the session and to practice between sessions. So these are small things we talk about. What do they have to expect, and what do we expect from them through treatment? We then work, so there's this first part of the session. So this is classical work. I just talked about it. We do very classical things to work through addiction with the presence of the partner, like I just described before. So I'll go rapidly through it. Just look at the time. Okay. And so this is the same description. So you recognize everything we do with addiction. We then have aspects of concerning the couple. We use a very classical thing, mutual reinforcements. Very interesting citation from John Wright, a very well-known couple researcher in Quebec here, saying when the bank account is in the red, any withdrawal is painful. A very interesting image about an observation Gottman did in all these couple studies, where he observed how distressed couples stop reinforcing each other. And there's consequences of this stopping of reinforcement sharing. So, and one of the consequences is about the attributions process, so the explanations people have about the behavior of the other. If the affection reserve is full, people will have positive explanation of the behavior of the even of negative behaviors. Oh, he was tired. Oh, he's a good guy. Sometimes he have a bad attitude, but generally he's a good guy. But if the bank account is in the red, even positive events will be explained by bad intentions or. So I remember a couple, the man described how he arrived with flowers, but his wife was so empty emotionally that she said, no, these are not the types of flower I love. You don't even remember the types of flowers I love. She was not able to recognize the positive intention. We spend time with couples about increasing positive behavior towards each other. So we do small things like list of things I can do, not what I want you to do for me, but what I can do for you. So we use generosity. And we have, sorry, it's a French, I didn't translate this list, but this is a small, very easy list. So we do a real work in session with couples about that. But this is old wisdom in couple therapy. We always use a very well-known and documented strategy in different type of psychotherapy, which is each session outcome monitoring. So we do it with brief assessment at each session, and we assess addiction behaviors. I was craving this week, number of times, time span, psychological distress, relationship satisfaction, and trust and anger. These are the variable but we could assess other things, but we thought these are crucial ones, modifying their level each week. So we have a graph representation. We can identify non-progressing couples. It provides some graphs like that. We look at it with couples, and I'm always surprised how interested they are. They want to see the results, even if these are very simple results. But then so we have many information and we work with that. Okay. And we work on this negative interaction cycle around addiction. This is the new part. This is not totally new. This is not totally new. We worked on that before, but we are more structured now. Like I said, largely inspired from Sue Johnson's attachment theory in practice. She has a book here for couples and many other things. She's very prolific, and her model is very interesting. Their organization, the ICEF, is a very prolific group, but they are not interested into addiction. And in their first trials, the trials were with couple with addiction, but they had the hypothesis that if you just provide a secure bonding into the couple, the addicted person will stop drinking. And it didn't work, and we understand easily why it didn't work, because this is not a good hypothesis. This is a good one, but a minor one. People are drinking or using substance for many reasons. Attachment is one reason, but this is not enough. So now what we decided is we talked a lot with them, we went through their workshops, and we said, okay, we will take core things, but we will incorporate it into a treatment for couple, treatment for addiction with couple that is proven as efficacious, but we will try to improve it by using very interesting thing you are proposing. And they are quite enthusiastic about that. So their postulate is attachment is the fundamental need in human beings. This is their postulate, but very interesting. It put lights on many things. Why is it so fundamental? Because it's linked to our survival history. The loners didn't survive. We needed to be in groups. So with evolution, being bounded to each other was a necessity to survive. And reaction, strong emotional reaction are probably actually caused by impression that attachment bounds are attacked. So we are built to react to attachment information. So one of the postulates we have is during conflicts, couple members don't talk about their attachment fears, but about many secondary emotions that are strategies to protect themselves from the threat of an attachment wound. They withdraw or they attack. Let me come back to the couple I just talked about, this man who is coming back very drunk at home. So what did we work? First, we described this interaction around during these moments. So the couple is more conscious. Okay, you are afraid of losing me. You're not attacking me through drinking, but when you drink, I'm so important for you that you prefer to lie, even if it's not efficacious at all, but you prefer to lie because you're terrified by the idea to lose me, which is a total shift into the comprehension of the interaction. So what we did with them is in the prevention of the next situation where the guy would drink, but he didn't drink since that time, but it will happen probably soon, is when he arrives at home, instead of saying, no, I didn't drink, is saying, I drank, and I'm terrified by the idea that we will be so angry and you will perhaps leave me. And the partner has also to practice the things like, I feel alone when I see you drunk. And it's a bit like my history with other people I had in my life, but then I feel in these moments very alone, like if I'm not important for you. So we shift the conversation of the couple through basic attachment emotions and reactions. And I remember this recent couple, I still see them, acting very positively and discovering a totally new world of meanings, and putting aside guilt and trying to talk about how important they are each other, and creating an alliance against addiction. So, I could go through it. I thought this image was very beautiful. Two people back to back, and this is how couples with addiction arrive back to back. They don't understand, they don't see them, and they feel the other one is not understanding their situation. They feel wounded. But we try to help the soft part of themselves to turn face to face and to say, I'm afraid to lose you, or I'm afraid for you when you drink so much. I'm afraid you will destroy you, and you are so important for me. Many times we say to people, would you react the same about a neighbor or someone else? And people are always saying, no, I react. I'm so angry, I attack him because he is so important. And we put the focus on he is so important. We slow down, we take time, we soften our voice, and we work on this attachment aspects. Okay, so the goal is to reinstall a secure bond between partners about addiction instead of attacks, of insecurity, where each one can express vulnerabilities, and they are all around attachment, mainly. So this is the main goal, together against our negative interaction cycle about addiction or around addiction. So the couple becomes able to say, okay, no, let us stop. We are talking about, the way we are talking is very destructive. Let us talk about our main fears. This is a small graph where we say that people during interaction about addiction, they have they call it in this model secondary emotions. So feel that from the addiction person feel control, is angry, rebellious. The partner feel angry, suspicious, empty, and then we direct them to, or guide them to talk about how he's afraid to be abandoned, not being good enough for the other, feeling alone, not loved, betrayed, about basic things. This is the focus we do. Time is flying, but I'll talk about another thing. When we talked about the repair, to repair attachment injuries to the couple's addiction interaction history. So this is the model where we help people to talk about these injuries. I think I still have a few, 3-4 minutes, Gallus, and then we all have a discussion with the group. Is it the fact, Gallus?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, good. So we work on that, and remember, we don't always work only on couple. Remember our structure of the session, but I put an accent in my description about the couples aspect, which are less familiar to people, of course. So, for example, that woman who was betrayed during 10 years by her husband, there's a strong attachment injury here. So she must first talk about, so we talk about that with the couple, and we say, I think we must spend time on that, because it emerged through many things, this wound, so we must talk about that. So the hurt partners talks about her pain, elaborates on the situation, etc. And integrates, and by describing it, she's able to understand herself, or he is able to understand himself more. And the therapist put accent on attachment fears, bounding. The partner who wanted the other must listen and develop empathy. And in that moment, he must express regrets. Without destructing himself, but just saying, "Oh, I didn't realize how hard it was for you. Your pain impacts me." And the wanted partner asked for reassurance, and the other partner is offering reassurance. We must repeat it many times. Of course, it is not all set after one's clinical moment. We must repeat it. The goal is to recreate this safe bounding, this safe heaven where people can have confidence into the other one. They create a new narrative about their relationship through this. Okay, and studies show that this is more efficacious. Perhaps I'll finish with this very classical thing we do, is to help partners to reduce, stop reinforcements of addiction and increase reinforcements of sobriety. So we see things like the partners are doing. Let me just illustrate through a clinical example where because I'm always a therapist into these studies and into the treatment. And I remember a couple I had where the woman came in Gallus. I finished with that. But I remember a couple I had, the woman was a huge gambler, and the man was gambling, but very controlled one. They had a conflict about, he wanted to buy a Winnebago, in North America, Winnebago, these campers, big trucks, you sleep in the truck, you have your kitchen, and it's a big thing. So people love to buy these huge things, and he wanted to buy one. She was so negative, she didn't want to buy one, but he bought it without her permission. And she was so angry, she said, "Never in a million years I will put my feet into your Winnebago." He was very angry, and they were coming in couple of treatments for her gambling disease, which was a severe one. She was spending so much money. But even knowing it, he thought about the strategy. I will invite her to casino. So he waited for an evening where she was so having a huge, important craving about gambling. And he said, "Okay, I can bring you to the casino." She said, "Oh, yes." And he used his Winnebago to bring her to the casino. He was so proud to explain it to me how he succeeded inviting her into her car, her camping car. And I was I was so impressed by the naivety, the incapacity for him to see how damageable it was. So by that time, I came back to the research team. I said, we must include a work on strategies used by partners that are reinforcing addiction, and to lower these and to improve the ones that are improving sobriety. So I have many other slides, but I mainly went through the description of the model. Other slides on the efficacy of our model. So Gallus, I think we are now at the question time period.
Yeah, thank you very much for this excellent talk. I'm sure there will be many questions. I also would have some, but first of all, I would like to see if there are any questions from the audience. Just raise your hand. Richard and Jenny Cousins afterwards.
Okay, well, I'll go first, but I'd love to. I'm interested to know what you're going to say as well, Jenny. I just thought it was lots of things. Congratulations, Joel. What a wonderful talk. What a absolutely fascinating talk, but also what a fascinating program of research. And I'm just really hugely impressed by lots of what you've said. Two things I want to ask about. One, I want to ask about forgiveness. I fully understand why that is so important, but it's quite fascinating to think about it being incorporated into a therapeutic program. And I'm interested in knowing how you do that, really. When you get two people who are often very angry with each other, particularly the partner who's extremely angry with his or her spouse having spent all the money and done so many terrible things, how do you get people to be open enough to forgive under these circumstances? So that's my one question. And my second question is about cultural adaptation. I'm extremely interested in cultural adaptation. As you know, I spend half my time working in India, and that's one of the biggest issues about cultural adaptation. But I've also been talking a lot with, for example, David Foxcroft, who's a researcher who's very much been researching programs like strengthening families, the use of families in prevention work for substance misuse. And one of the things that's coming across quite strongly is how difficult it is to utilize interventions that are developed in one culture in another culture. So I mean, you've talked about a very small cultural adaptation, which is how in different countries some families want to be more integrated into therapeutic work, and in other cultures less so. And you talked about two different countries, but when I was working in Italy, we had that across different parts of the country. So in northern Italy and Milan, people didn't want to be particularly involved in family-related work. And in southern Italy, people were desperate to be involved in family-related work, but just because within this one country, there were big cultural differences. So I'm interested in how you're incorporating cultural differences. So those are my two questions, forgiveness and cultural differences.
Yeah, that's totally interesting. The first one is we define forgiveness more as a process than a discrete end. In the thesis of Melissa, we built a kind of a description, a graph about, or a figure about all the tiny aspects and tiny process people are going through. And we try to help our therapists to incorporate into their mind this kind of map, or where people must go. So we describe more forgiveness as a process than a state. So about that, if I take the example you gave about the partner who is very angry, we will start with the first step, which is talk about it. And we will help the partner, the addicted person, to listen and to develop empathy. Sometimes it's not possible. But if it's possible, we will help him to listen, develop empathy, and just listening and developing empathy. And the wounded partner, just to see how sorry he is, how sincerely, he must be sincere. Sincerely he is at listening, and sometimes the addicted person is crying, just seeing how difficult it was, or it is, for his or her partner. So it's not magic, but it helps to recreate the bond. at least in the journey to recreate that bond. So this is the way we work on it, but sometimes it doesn't work, especially when the addicted person is not able of empathy. This is not possible to go through forgiveness process, and these couples will probably separate. For the second part, we are at the introduction of cultural adaptation. We didn't do cultural adaptation. I gave seminar in Italy, in France, and in Sweden, but we are very curious, and I'm sure I totally approve this idea you said about we cannot think that the treatment developed in one culture will apply simply the same way in another culture. So I'm very interested, and I want to work with the teams and to write about the qualitative papers on what do we think we should adapt in each culture, and I don't think it will be the same adaptations. I would be curious, for example, in India. I don't know this culture very much, but I think we would do things very differently. So sorry, I don't have answer instead of sharing my curiosity.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Did you say that the forgiveness stuff has Melissa written a paper on that?
Yeah, there's a scoping review on that, and now she submitted and it was accepted through. We need to do different modification about this multiple cases study. Two papers on that.
Okay, I will look that up. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, Jenny.
Hi, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it. It's actually been really relieving to hear someone talking this way because it's really relating to the work that I do. I'm a systemic practitioner, so I'm qualifying to be a systemic psychotherapist. I'm just currently in my master's, but I work at the National Problem Gambling here, which is part of the NHS. So I see a lot of couples working with them, and I love the ideas of externalizing addiction, like Together Against Addiction. I mean, to me, that is relating to Michael White, and I think it's so powerful. It's such a move of different positions, so I love that. I guess what I wanted to ask you was firstly what your experience is of engaging males when it's females gambling. So I'm talking about heterosexual couples, but I guess in my context, I find it really difficult. There's very few that are coming forward to the family service, and often then they don't engage in in couples therapy. And also, I guess I'm curious about wider family kind of constellations. So about 50% I work with couples, but a lot of the time also I'm working with parents and their adult children. And I'm wondering about kind of your experience of working kind of systemically with others, I guess, too involved.
Two questions. The first one, mainly, we have an expression here in our team. We say male addicted persons have better partners than women addicted persons. Mostly in our treatment, we observe that the female partners are good partners. They work toward the objective, the implied themselves. They have a lot of implications into the treatment, and they are very good partners. Male ones, we observe more diversity. Sometimes they drink a lot themselves, and they are more independent. We have both pictures. I saw very good partners, and I saw others that are like the one with the camping car. Jesus, you understand nothing. I had to go through strong education for him. At the same time, it was not badly intentioned, but he didn't understand. So the picture is more mixed about men partners. Do we work with families? So in our work, I only work with couples. So I don't have a lot of experience with working with families. My wife works a lot with families, but myself and our research team are totally dedicated for the couple part of the treatment. But I easily imagine, and I read about family treatment. Principles are quite similar, but there's something specific into the couple, of course. So I'm not very helpful for the family part.
No, that's just it. That's all right. That's my, I guess that's my other interest. I'm
We
really
have heard
interested.
about 25 to 40% of people coming in specialized addiction services are living with a partner. So we always say our couple treatment is for 25 to 40% of your
Yeah,
clients
yeah,
in a
yeah,
specialized treatment center.
yeah. Thank you. I'm interested to hear more about the pilot. I don't know whether I could email you or there'd be opportunities for us to be involved as we're kind of in the UK.
To have a pilot sites, we need a team, a local team, research team implied into clinical practices where we can share together and because we'll have to conduct interviews with clinicians about what are their experience. So we try to develop with the local research clinical team kind of partnership where we, because I'm in Quebec, I cannot follow everybody in another country. So there's an implication of the local team to collect information and to write together a paper about that. So
Okay,
these are
thank you. Thanks.
Okay, since at the
Sorry,
moment,
Alex, can I just say,
Yeah.
Jen, if you want to have a chat about that, one of the things we hopefully can do within AFINet is try and put people together. So obviously you as the National Gambling Clinic are interested. As you know, we're working a lot with the Leeds one, and Matthew and Dan. So I mean, I would have thought there would be an opportunity for us to put together a sort of research as well as a clinical team. Obviously you and perhaps people in Leeds doing the clinical work, and then others of us helping doing the research work, so that we could then develop a pilot in the UK to work with Joel. That would be really fascinating. So bear that in mind. Contact me if you want.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
excellent proposition.
Yeah, wonderful. When I heard you talk, I was first of all, I think it's an excellent idea to what I thought was the main difference between your approach and cognitive couples behavior therapy, that you rely more heavily on attachment theory, which I think is at the core of a lot of suffering family members do have. And I just thought that you have 15 sessions, which is more than the usual CBT sessions Barbara McCready does. But still, I was thinking that especially the issue on attachment injuries you put on, which I think is almost completely lacking in the couples behavior therapy, since there's a clear definition, just work on the here and now stuff. And I just was thinking maybe there might be some couples for whom this approach might come too early. So this is rather a kind of a question. So because quite often addiction might also be associated, for example, with power struggles within couple relationships. And I just wonder what your experiences are like, and if there might be some people, some couples for whom your kind of therapy might not be appropriate, or where you might say we should rather exclude them because they probably would need more time or more support. So do you believe this integrative couples therapy is suitable for every couples, or are there couples where you would say it's probably better to approach them with a different method?
No, like I say, there's no one pill that works for every sickness. So I apply the same logic to psychosocial interventions. So what more concretely, For example, we accept couples who have a minimum attachment engagement. So they must say minimally something like, it's my last chance with that couple. This is the minimum. At least you say this is your last chance. Okay, we can work. We exclude couple where people are feared about their security, physical security. So we don't work with this model in these situations. Or if narcissism is very high for one person, unable to have empathy, we don't work with this. We don't work if severe mental health situations are happening and one of the member of the couple is not available, cognitively or emotionally available, is too absorbed into his mental health problems. So we have thresholds in our questionnaires about that. Otherwise, I supervise a group of clinicians here in Quebec doing regular couple treatment and addiction. So outside of the research project, I supervise the couple, and one of my colleagues is doing something similar in Montreal, Marianne. And recently we talked about this attachment topic, and my colleague said sometimes it doesn't work, and there's a paper published on that where the went through multiple cases analysis using attachment model to work with couples with addiction, and they said sometimes it doesn't work. We must go back to simple behavioral cognitive strategies. People don't want to talk about these fears of attachment or attachment injuries, and just keep the facts. I'm talking to you in practice. So we must be flexible. And in our workshop with clinicians, we show both. Sometimes we say to clinicians, sometimes it will not work. Just use clinical behavioral cognitive strategies to help a couple to communicate, and it will be enough. And the last point on that, I remember so many clinical situations from my colleagues with people in totally difficult situation. We know at the beginning that we will have years to work with these couples. Through perhaps just 10, 12 sessions, then they stop, and they come back 6 months later, because we know 50% of our clients in addiction will need years to be better. So it is. So we must think about couple treatment into this more complex vision of healing from addiction.
Yeah, thank you very much. I completely agree.
Thank you, guys.
Are there any further questions or comments? Well, apparently your talk has been so brilliant that everything is clear. I'm not sure whether Richard has got another question. I suspect probably he has.
I always have more questions, but no, I won't, because I mean it's already coming up to 10 past, and so and we've had various people leaving because they've had to go to other meetings. So I think this is probably a good time to stop. But I did want to thank you again, Joel, because I just thought this was. We've had some very, very good webinars. You should look at them on the website. They're all, the recordings of them are all there. But I think this is absolutely one of the best. I think that it was so stimulating, exciting to hear the mix of research and clinical work that you bring together. It's at the very heart of what we're doing in AFINet, which is, you know, Addiction and the Family International. And what can be more international? And also the idea that we put people in touch, and then there's someone from the National Gambling Clinic in the UK talking about wanting to get involved with your research in Canada and in the other countries. I mean, I just think this was a perfect example of what we're trying to do in our AFINet webinars. So I just wanted to thank you so much, Joel.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Richard. And it was very interesting for me to be here. I'm very glad, and I thank you for the invitation to come as a speaker. Thank you so much.
Also from my side, many, many thanks. And I would warmly welcome you also to contribute to the AFINet newsletter, for example, when it comes to stimulate further international scientific cooperations. And of course, we would also be very interested to get some updates on your ongoing projects. And so I would like to close by mentioning that on the 26th of April, we also have another talk from Canada by Heather Morris on bereaved mothers' use of media efficacy in advancing drug policy reform in Canada. So I hope to see you all then there. And for everyone who wasn't able to attend this session, the session will be available on the AFINet website. And thank you very much again for your brilliant talk and best success for your ongoing projects. And hopefully see you next year at the Rotterdam conference again in person.
And perhaps we'll be able to organize one of these future international conferences in Quebec. For AFINet Group.
Great.
Yes, that would be wonderful. We very much would like that. As Gala says, we're going to have a virtual conference again this year, this September. And then next year, we hope that the world will have got to a stage where we can have a physical face-to-face one in Rotterdam. And we'll probably be thinking about having a conference every 2 years, but we might move to annual. And it will be very nice to book you in for the one after that in
after Rotterdam. It could be Quebec. My colleagues are very enthusiastic about organizing, so it could be in 4 years, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant.
That would be excellent.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for attending. And so see you on the 26th of April in the next webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye then.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.